Hey friends, it's Cassie and welcome back for another Trinity Stamps video. I have a fun fall card for you, so let's just jump right into it. We're going to be using the Bunny Burrow stamp and matching die set. I just am in love with this little stamp and die set. And then we're also going to be using this very cool stencil. This is the Layered Birch stencil. There are 4 stencils in this along with a lot of masks, and so I have mine, all the trees that go with each stencil, I have those taped together with purple tape. Then we also have a sentiment for almost everything. This is a fabulous sentiment set, and I have been using it for almost everything lately. Alright, so let's go ahead and get started. I have a piece of cardstock that I have cut down to 4 inches by 5.5 inches, so it's almost the full front of an A2 size card. I'm going to take one of those layers from the Layered Birch stencil, and I'm going to start doing some blending with my little blender buddies. So I've got a blue ink here that I'm blending down towards the bottom, and I'm going to layer these up a little bit. So I'll take that off and I'll clean it up, and then I'm going to move it down, and then I'm going to grab a darker blue. I wanted to try something different with color scheme, so our grass is blue. I know that's very odd, but when it's done, it all comes together. So we've got that darker blue down at the bottom, and we're just going to, bring that all the way down and make sure that's nice and dark and deep. And then I'll pull that off and I'll clean that up. And it's at this point that I'm going to realize that I think that the lighter blue is a little too light, so without even adding any more ink to my blue blender buddy, I'm just going to ink that right over the top, and it ends up subduing that color to the perfect teal color that I wanted. Alright, now I want to do the upper portion, so I'm going to take one of the negatives, the mask, and mask off my ground, and I'm just going to hold that down with my magnets, and I'm going to bring in a yellow color. And everything that I'm using I will have linked down below in the description box. So we'll bring in our yellow color, and I want it to be nice and intense up top. And then we're going to just bring that down almost like an ombre color till it fades into the bottom portion there. And then we'll just keep blending that color on top until I'm happy with the blend. But I do like that deep yellow. Now we're going to bring in each of the different birch tree stencils. So I'll pull off, like I said, I have the matching trees that go with it, just with some purple tape that I taped to it. I need to mask off the ground. And then I'm going to stick down the first birch tree, and then I'm going to bring in like a light brown color. And I want these to be, obviously I want them to be in the background. I don't need them to be real dark because they are not the focus of this card. So I'm just going to keep trying to manipulate that stencil a little bit. Because I didn't have my paper taped down, I was struggling. Because the only thing that I'm holding down with those magnets is the stencil. So I'm also holding it with my fingers, and I'm going over the top of the stencil just with the brown blender buddy that I have and a brown ink. And then, like I said, wanted it to be fairly subtle, so I'll remove that, clean it off, and grab the next one, and then we'll layer that over the top, once again keeping our mask at the bottom. Just lining that up. And then we'll go through the same process again. I think this stencil is so much fun, and I do love that it has the masks that go with it. There is just so much versatility with a stencil set like this. And it's really easy to line back up if you happen to be a little bit aggressive like I am when it comes to blending. So yeah, it's super easy to line back up. Then I'll remove this one, and then we'll go ahead and put our final one down, going through the exact same process. After I've used all 3 birch tree stencils, I'm going to put the leaves down on top. And so we'll just go through that same process again, and we're going to use the same brown over the top of this. Again, I just want this to be a fairly subtle background, and so I didn't want to draw too much crazy attention to what was going on in the background. I just want that to be just a backdrop. So once I've gotten that taken care of, I'll clean off my stencil, and then we're going to do our stamping. I have a piece of Express It cardstock. I'm going to ink up my stamps with some Memento Tuxedo black ink. I'll do this a couple times to make sure that I have a good stamped impression for all of my little images. And then once those are all stamped, we'll get started with our coloring. So I need that grass mound to match the grass that I have put on my background. So yes, we are starting with blue. I'm going to take a B37. That will be my lighter tone, because I like to color lightest to darkest when it comes to alcohol marker coloring. And I'm coloring here with my Copics. And when you're coloring a larger surface like this, you want to kind of stay close to what you've already colored. You can end up with some fairly harsh lines with alcohol marker coloring if you like do your outline first all around it and then try and fill in. So if you'll notice, oftentimes I don't work too far ahead. I try to stay pretty close to what I've just colored and then just keep working together in that. That removes the likelihood that I'll have some harsh lines with my coloring. My next color will be B39. That's going to be my darker shade of blue. And again, I know it seems kind of funny to color that grass blue, but once it's all together, it will make sense. I'm just adding some shadowing and shading where I think it will look good. I don't really have any rhyme or reason to where I'm putting it. Mostly just at the bottom and sort of around that door. And then we're just putting it off to the lower right-hand side of the flowers, almost like our sun would be coming in from the upper left-hand corner. And then I'll blend those out. We're also going to have to bring in that blue for all of our little leaves on our flowers. And then we'll add a dark, just the touch of the dark. And then I do want to make those grass blades on the burrow a little bit darker. I'll bring in some YR24 for my flowers. I'm going to color those all the same. And then we'll move on to our door. So we'll start with that YR24. Put down a nice wash of that, and then our flowers will be the same color. Can you see the theme here? And then we're going to bring in some E99. I'll do that around the window. And then I'll even do it on the little bricks around the door. And then we'll do it on the little bricks on the ground as well. And then our darker shade will be E37. Just to add a little bit of something. You don't have to go too crazy. I'm sticking primarily to just those three colors that I basically used on my background. So we had yellows, we had browns, and we had blues. I will bring in a pop of hot pink. I know that seems kind of funny, but it works. And you'll see here in a little bit. For my rabbit, I wanted him or her to be gray, but I wanted to bring in those cooler tones. So I am using some BVs. So those are the blue violets. And so we started with B60, and then we're bringing in blue violet 34 as my darker shade. And then I'll blend those out just a little bit with that B60. And it's fun because she's gray, but she's also got like blue violet undertones. And then for her nose, we've got RV17, and that's also going to be on the heart on the door. And then we'll incorporate that as well in with our little fox and our little raccoon. So we'll do the YR24 again on our fox. And it does seem a little crazy, a little funny maybe, because he looks yellow right now. And then we'll bring in our E99. That will lighten that up a little, or not lighten, but darken that up a little bit. Bring you back to making you think it's the fox type colors. We'll blend those out. Someone asked me recently if I have like go-to colors for different critters, and the answer is not really. I tend to like to mix it up a little bit. Sometimes I will have a color combo that I do like for a certain type of critter, but most of the time I like to mix it up. I like to just look at my colors and play with them all. I like them all to feel very loved. So, and so we're doing that same sort of thing with our raccoon. We've got BV20, and then we're going to come in with some BV23. And so yes, it looks gray, but it does have that blue violet undertone so that it makes everything seem a little bit more cohesive. And so I'll bring in that BV23 just as the shadowing and shading for the lighter part, and then it's going to be the main color for his stripes and his face and his tummy. And then we'll bring in BV25 to darken that up and then blend that out a little bit more. I love it. It's just a little bit different. And then we'll, once again, with their ears, bringing that in. And then with his little nose. And now it's time to bring in our matching dies. We're going to cut out all the pieces with the matching dies. And I love that the little door can open up on this bunny burrow. And it does cut out the window. You wouldn't have to put that back in if you didn't want to. And there's some other little elements that go with it. So we're going to go ahead and glue these down. You could pop these up with some foam tape, but I decided to keep everything fairly simple. And we'll just glue the window back in. And then I'm going to put the little bunny like she is coming out of the door. So I will put some liquid glue on her, but I do want the door to be popped up a little bit, so I am going to grab a foam square and I'll just put that behind the door, so that way the door is popped up just a tiny bit. We'll put a flower in her paw, and then we have to put the stepping stones in front of the door. And then the little worm has to go somewhere too, so he's going to go in the front. It was hard to decide, do I want him up on the burrow or just next to the door? So we just prop him down next to the door, but I had to add him. He's so cute. And then for our sentiment, I do bring in some navy cardstock that I had in my stash, just a chunk of it. And I have two sentiments that come from the a sentiment for almost everything. I'm going to use my magic powder bag over the top of the navy cardstock, kind of sweep away the excess, and then I'll ink up my sentiments with some Versamark ink, which is just a clear sticky ink. I'll stamp those down, and then I am going to cover those with an ultrafine gold embossing powder. That way it'll match even more. I have a little bit of excess residue where my fingers were, so I'll just take a paintbrush and I'll wipe away the excess. And then we're going to heat set these until those are smooth and melted. It's always interesting to me when I use gold on a darker cardstock, it looks like it's not going to work, and then as soon as it starts melting, you know it's perfect. I trim those down, and then we're going to get ready to adhere that to the front of our card, just using some liquid glue. I'm going to have a little bit of a tail sticking off the edge, but that's okay. I like to keep that there because it does help me to line things up fairly straight, and then I can just trim that off later. My card base is going to be some of this rust-colored cardstock that I had in my stash. I cut that down to 5.5 inches by 8.5 inches, and I'm scoring that at 4.25 inches. This will be a side-folding A2 size card. And then we have to decorate the inside. We just have to. So I'll trim down my sentiment at an angle, and then when we have our elements how we sort of want them, we're going to just glue those down with some liquid glue. Our little raccoon will be holding this flower, and then our fox will be sitting on top of our sentiment that says, "Sending many blessings your way." And I think our little fox matches nicely with our colored cardstock. And then we'll trim off the excess from our sentiment, and we'll adhere our card panel down to our card base. It's going to have a nice little border on the left and right hand side. And then I couldn't stop there. I did have to add some embellishments. So we have some Goldrush confetti mix that I put into the tidy tray, and then we're just going to prop those down with our jewel picker along with some liquid glue. And then when those are all on there, that's going to finish off our card. So if you liked this video, please hit the like button. Please subscribe if you haven't already done so. And as always, I will see you very soon in another video. Thanks for stopping by.